Hello, I'm Ron Wirtz, editor of the Fed-Gazette. Everyone knows the recession has been tough on business. We've all heard anecdotes, and we can see the shuttered doors and the empty storefronts in our own communities. But in contrast to unemployment, which is studied and reported on obsessively, we tend to have a more tenuous understanding of trends among business, particularly young businesses that play a critical role in employment growth. Data are not very comprehensive or timely, despite the fact that long-term trends regarding business startups, growth, and death have a major impact on the economy. But better data are coming available from federal agencies like the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they show that the recession took a big bite out of businesses in the 9th District. For example, the fourth quarter of 2007, the official start of the recession, through the first quarter of 2010, the number of business establishments in the district dropped by almost 3%, with Minnesota and Wisconsin seeing the largest declines. Their numbers started to rise again in the second and third quarter of last year, the most recent data we have available. But there are still 10,000 fewer establishments in district states than at their peak in 2006. If you look behind the macro numbers, there are also some troubling trends. As this chart shows, though establishment deaths are now coming down after a major spike, establishment births are still falling, and it doesn't appear likely that they'll return to pre-recession levels very quickly. Establishment births are important because of their role in employment. Research has shown that young firms are responsible for a disproportionately large share of new jobs, both when new businesses are born and in their early years when many surviving firms see strong growth. Overall, young businesses tend to hire people at a faster rate than older ones. Though many young establishments ultimately fail, a small portion of them become fast-growing companies commonly referred to as gazelles. A study last year by the Kauffman Foundation found that in any given year, fast-growing young firms make up less than 1% of all companies, yet generate roughly 10% of all new jobs. That's why the recession's effect on new establishments is worth close attention. Since peaking in 2006, the number of private establishments less than 1 year old has declined for 4 consecutive years across the district, dropping a total of 24% and falling below 20,000. Every district state has witnessed a decrease of very young establishments over this period, as illustrated in these charts. The drop has been particularly steep in Minnesota, Montana, and Wisconsin. With fewer young establishments, related employment has also fallen. In fact, employment at very young establishments has trended downward for at least the last decade and a half. In the mid-1990s, startups in 9th District states created 180,000 jobs per year, give or take. Last year, that number fell below 100,000 jobs. The trend is at all district states, but none harder than Wisconsin, which has seen employment at startups drop by almost 50% since 2000. Some of this stems from a simple decline in new establishments, which we've already talked about. But another important factor is the steady drop in average employment at these new establishments, as you can see in this chart. In 2000, a startup in Wisconsin, for example, would typically employ 7 people. A decade later, it employed just 5. The final pinch of salt in this economic wound has to do with business survival. Employment depends on a company's ability to stay in business, and the 5-year survival rate of startups has been declining, particularly in Minnesota, Montana, and Wisconsin. In the Gopher State, the 5-year survival rate for new establishments has typically fluctuated between 50 and 60%, but that rate has been falling steadily of late. Just 45% of establishments from the business class of 2005 were still operating in 2010, and more recent startups might be seeing an even lower survival rate, given the fact that their formative years are through the heart of the recession and the slow economic recovery. What's behind these trends is difficult to know for sure. Entrepreneurs appear to be more tentative when it comes to starting a new company and hiring new employees. But some longer-term shifts are also likely at play. For example, new IT and other technology firms are often less labor-intensive, which might explain the drop in average employment among startups. What's easy to see is that the recession has reinforced the notion that starting and operating a new business is tough under normal circumstances, and doubly so during a downturn. It also provides some possible insights as to why the job market has remained so sluggish during the recovery. For much more data and discussion on these issues, see the articles posted nearby, and thanks for watching.